Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. Game Performance Review, Dell Inspiron i7-5559 gaming laptop computer with the GTX 960M 4GB graphics card. Will this graphics card play modern games? Let's find out. I have previously reviewed this computer, but not for a while. Links will be in the video description below to a full playlist of videos on this laptop, as well as to Amazon and Newegg. The purpose of this is to circle back around to the previous generation of laptop and try the newest, latest, greatest games on it and see, are they playable or do you really need to upgrade? Other than the graphics chip, this is an amazingly good computer. We have an Intel i7-6700HQ 4-core 8-thread processor up to 3.5 GHz, 16 GB of main system RAM, a 500 GB solid-state drive, and a 1 TB hard drive. The only weak link in this computer is the GeForce GTX 960M 4GB card, which is roughly equal in performance to a desktop 750 Ti. It has nothing to do with the desktop 960. It's a 750 Ti for a laptop. This video was recorded using an external Elgato HD60S capture card, no performance loss due to recording, fraps used for the benchmark results, and MSI Afterburner provides the real-time numbers in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Today we are testing The Witcher 3 720p versus 1080p, low versus medium detail. There are 4 different runs being benchmarked here. All the results will be at the end of the video. Now what you're watching right now is 1080p medium detail. I'll tell you when we switch over to but it'll be pretty obvious because we're going to restart from the beginning. But the next up will be 1080p low detail, and then I'll show you the 2 720p runs. Look at our real-time performance in the upper left-hand corner. 30 frames per second. The game looks okay, medium detail is not too bad, but performance is pretty low and we're out in the wilderness not really doing anything. Get into the cities, get into big combat areas, and it's going to drop further. The primary limitation to performance here is the graphics chip. The 960M, while good in its day, really doesn't cut it for The Witcher 3, at least not at these detail settings. But that's why I'm making this video. This video is for those who still own one of these laptops or maybe find a really good deal on one used at a good price and want to know, can I play current AAA games on one? Why, yes, you can, but there are limitations and you have to be willing to make graphic and detail setting adjustments. Here we are at 1080p at low detail. Notice our frame rate is already noticeably higher than it was on the previous run. Also notice that the graphics look much worse. Now, I have rendered this in high quality and I've uploaded it to YouTube upscaled to 4K. Why? Because that lets YouTube give it all the bitrate possible, because otherwise normal 1080p YouTube compression would obliterate many of the detail differences between these various runs because they put a lot of compression on 1080p videos. But when I upscale them in my renderer to 4K and upload them at high bit rates, YouTube tends to give the video a better bit rate so that it looks better on your end, even if you're only watching on a 1080p monitor. If you have the bandwidth and the computer power to do it, I suggest you click the gear icon on YouTube, look up the detail settings, and pick the highest one your computer will play back. 2160p at 60 frames per second should be an option. If you choose it, even on a 1080p monitor, the video that YouTube sends you will be of a higher bitrate and a higher quality to let you see the graphical differences between these runs in more detail. Now, if you can't or your computer won't run it, I understand. But it's there in order to give you the option to see the detail differences, because at a low resolution, at a low setting, a lot of the differences between low and medium detail are lost with YouTube compression. Now, as for this specific laptop, I have tested it numerous times in the past. I'm circling back around to it one more time in the summer of 2017 to show whether or not, for current users or potential bargain hunters, is this something worth considering. The price difference between a laptop with a GTX 960M and a GTX 1060 is huge. You can pay up to twice the price for a laptop with a 1060. And so I'm sure there are people out there who wonder, do I really need to upgrade? Is it worth all that money? Well, if you're interested in playing AAA games, worth is a personal opinion, but is it a big difference? Oh, you better believe it. The 1060 is about 3 times faster. Not 30% faster. Try 300% faster. It's not even close. The GTX 1060 will play this at 1080p at high detail all day long without complaint. High detail would be a slideshow on the 960M. As a side note, I recognize that the area that I'm testing this game in is not necessarily representative of the entire game. There's a reason for that. This run right here is very easy to repeat. Nothing's interfering, nothing's engaging me in combat that I don't want. It's not variable depending upon the environment and a lot of other things going on. For the purposes of doing a comparison, it makes it very, very easy to load this up and just run around a circle around the trees. Now, I understand that later in the game, it becomes more demanding. The frame rate will drop. If you have not played through this game and you're wondering, should you buy The Witcher 3, especially since you can now get a deal on it, it's inexpensive now, you may not know that. So keep in mind that the performance you're seeing here will not hold throughout the entire game. It will drop a bit. Now, we're currently playing at 720p resolution at medium detail. The graphics quality is better, but the resolution is lower, so it's a little bit more pixelated. That's probably not going to come across very much on YouTube because of the way it does its compression, especially if you're watching this with either 720p or 1080p selected on the gear icon. Now, this is on a desktop. Many mobile devices don't give you the choice to change resolution, unfortunately, but they do on a desktop. Now, we're currently just under 60 frames per second, at least in this part of the world. And I actually did really well here getting all these guys straight from my horse. I usually can't do that, but it worked out pretty well this time. Now, this is something I want you to remember when you look at the results at the end of the video. I want you to think about this, and I want you to compare the 1080p low run to the 720p medium run. No, they're not exactly the same performance, but essentially here you're being asked to make a trade-off. Do you want sharper images or better images? Notice the view distance as I walk along here. Notice how far the detail on the ground is drawn. If you want, go back and rewatch the 1080p low or medium and notice how short the view distance is. Look at the ground. Now, maybe you don't care. This is extremely personal preference. Do you care how far out the detail on the trail on the ground, where the pop-in of distance rendering is? Do you care about how nice the trees look? Maybe you don't. Maybe you'd rather play with a sharper image and you want 1080p at low detail. Maybe you like a richer looking world and don't care about the resolution. So you take 720p at medium detail in order to make everything look nicer but not as sharp. Of course, there's always the option to simply get a laptop with a GTX 1060 and you don't have to make the choice. High detail 1080p, it's gorgeous, and you're not going to have any issues. When I'm filming this in June of 2016, you could find laptops with the GTX 960M in the $550 to $700 price range. Definitely, if you don't own one, don't spend a penny more than that, because when you get to $800, you can get laptops with a GTX 1050. The 1050 is 50% faster than this graphics chip, and a 1050 Ti is about 70% faster than this. So the minute you start encroaching upon the $700 range, you might as well be on a 10 series card, even if it's only a 1050. But if you don't own one of these and you're on a strictly limited budget and you're willing to take a used one, consider if you can find one of these in the $600 price range and that's all the money you've got, it's definitely going to be faster than, say, a laptop with a GT 940MX or even a GTX 950M. Although the 950M and the 960M are pretty close, this is perhaps 20-ish% faster than a 950M, and so if you can find one, it's not a bad deal. Likewise, if you own one and you're thinking of selling it, depending upon the configuration, that's about what you're looking at getting out of it. Unfortunately, even with the great processor, great screen, and great everything else, the graphics chip really hurts the value. Now, if you have a laptop that you only care about the CPU and the RAM and the display and the graphics chip's not as important, these actually make very compelling values. This particular laptop that I'm testing this on actually has a 4K IPS screen, and you can buy these for under $700. Now, it's not going to be with a 500 gig SSD, and it's not going to be with 16 gigs of RAM, but because I've upgraded it. But the fact of the matter is the i7 6700 HQ processor is still basically top of the line for laptops. The screen is very nice. Everything else is fine. It's just a graphics chip that's weak. You can go out and buy basically this exact same laptop, same processor, or even a 7th gen, which is only about 3 to 5% faster. It's a minor difference. Same RAM. The only difference is the GTX 1060. And then you're going to be looking in the $1,100 to $1,300 price range rather than the $600-ish price range. So it's basically double the price for just changing out the graphics chip. But as I said before, it's nearly triple the performance. So it makes a world of difference if gaming is your thing. Now this here is the 720p low detail preset ROM. As you can see, it performs very nicely. It just doesn't look very pretty. But pretty is an aesthetic choice. Pretty is a subjective opinion rather than objective opinion. So whether or not this is acceptable to you is a very, very personal choice. You either like it or you don't. I'm making the video to let you make up your own mind. Well, that's enough of the performance. Let's take a look at the results. And here we are at the results. Now there's a lot on the screen. We'll go through it color by color. The green bars are average frame rate. The red bars are the 1% minimum and the blue bars are the 0.1% minimum. Let's talk about averages first. 33, 45, 53, and 75 frames per second respectively in the order I showed the test to you. 1080p medium, 1080p low, then 720p medium, and then 720p low. You can see a very consistent stair step of performance between the two resolutions and the two detail settings. Is this game playable at 1080p at medium detail? No, not really. Yeah, I guess it works okay wandering around the forest. Don't even think about it. The whole game is not going to be playable at 1080p at medium. What about 1080p at low? Yeah, kinda, sorta. It's definitely better, but you are going to run into issues. If you really want to play The Witcher 3 on a GTX 960M, plan on having to lower the resolution. You may not have to do it here. You might tolerate the 1080p low, but when you get later in the game, it's not going to hold up. 720p, either at medium or low, or some combination of them. Keep in mind you don't have to use presets. You can play with the settings to find what details that matter more to you. Do you want the vegetation to look nicer? Do you want the hair to look nicer? Do you want viewing distance to be higher? These are all personal preferences. Now let's talk about the red bars. The red bars are very important because the red bars represent the minimum frame rate you'll get 99% of the time. Now normally much higher than that, but it won't drop below that except 1% of the time. Now the blue bars take that one decimal place further, 99.9% of the time. Notice the huge difference between some of these runs and no difference between others. 1080p medium had enough hitches and enough slowdowns that the 1% and 0.1% didn't make much difference because of the fact that it was just pretty dreadful overall. But when we lower the detail settings to low, enough of the frames got better so that there is a big difference between the 1% minimum and the 0.1% minimum. Now you basically saw the entire runs that I tested on these cards, so you can go back and watch them after seeing these results if you'd like to try to see where the frame rate was during the runs. But essentially that 1% minimum, the red bar, is the one that's the most important, and it's why medium at 1080p is unplayable, but low will be at many portions of the game. Now we step up to 42 frames per second on the 720p medium run and 56 frames per second on the 720p low. So even at 720p resolution, even at low detail, the 1% and 0.1% minimums do not hold 60 frames per second. However, by and large, this game would absolutely be playable at 720p at low detail. Are you willing to make that compromise? The choice is yours. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with that big huge red button directly below this video. Check the video description for links to everything described in this video, and then please consider supporting me on Patreon. This video was brought to you by my wonderful Patreon supporters. Nothing was provided by any company, no products or sponsorship was provided by anybody mentioned in this video. Thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for supporting, and I will see you in my next video.